Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Richard Cherney and Jamie Love welcoming you to an episode of Journey into Awareness. And Jamie, we have a wonderful guest today, don't we?
Yes, we do. It's Fred Wolfman. Hello, Fred.
Hey, wonderful guys.
And
Good to be here.
they're both
How
from
are you both?
California.
We're doing good.
Yes, we're doing fine. We're doing great. The weather is nice and sunny here today in Long Island, New York. How's the weather out there in California, eh?
You wouldn't believe how gloomy it is today.
Gloomy?
It's actually really gray. We're doing the June gloom thing right now.
Oh, okay. Is it the same way you are, Fred, in Long Beach? Are you in Long Beach?
Yeah, it's just a little coast that I'm supposed to pass by the weekend, and it's going to go right back to being dry. A lot of people
okay.
use that for dry.
Okay. We're having some problem with the audio mic.
That's from his connection.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a very interesting... Jamie, why don't we talk about how you and I both met Fred? I met Fred through you at a Shriner function in December.
That's correct.
And
That's
when we both got together, we were like, I felt like I met my brother for the first time. And I said to myself, where have you been? And that's the kind of meeting that I had with Fred. But why don't you talk about how you met Fred and the conversation?
We had a very similar connection, actually. I was bartending an event, a Shriner event, like you said, and Fred actually noticed that I have a tattoo on my hand, and he said, "Are you a Baha'i? My mom was a Zoroastrian." And immediately we were like, or just like this, weren't we?
Yep.
Yeah, we had plenty of things to talk about. I know a lot about his mother's religion, and of course I could tell that he was of Persian persuasion. Just a beautiful, beautiful man. And yeah, we had a lot of things to talk about. That I can't even remember half of the conversation, but I know it was intense.
Can the two of you explain, first, Jamie, what Baha'i is, for the audience that doesn't know, and then, Freddie, maybe you can explain a little bit what a Zoroastrian is, too.
Okay, well, from my meager understanding of the Baha'i faith, it's the newest world religion. It's a Unitarian kind of religion. They don't like to call it a religion; they like to call it the cause. It's the purpose of it is to unite all peoples, all faiths, all creeds. It's a beautiful philosophy.
Yes.
I would have to say. I'm not a practicing Baha'i anymore, but I still promote it and still love it and still have friends in the faith. So what more can I say about it? I could go on for hours about it, really, but I'd rather hear more from Fred.
Okay.
Well, the Baha'i faith is definitely interesting and important because in the part of the world I come from, that part of the Middle East, it's actually something that is frowned upon by some of the extremist governments. So people that have this faith, this beautiful belief, are actually hunted down and persecuted. So it's a pretty grim situation.
Mm-hmm.
Zoroastrian, however, my mother being of an ancient Persian descent, she is Zoroastrian, and it's an old. They don't believe it's a religion either. They think of it as a spirituality more than anything. But technically, it is one of the first organized religions, great religions of the world, and it pretty much has three very simple doctrines, if you will, or commandments, and that's good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. They believe in the ancient geometry, symbolism, the
Right.
ancient
Sacred geometry.
astronomy, sacred astronomy,
Mm-hmm.
and so they have a lot to do with the sun. And unfortunately, some people on the West mistook that for where they're sun. They're not sun worshippers. they're very spiritual people, and they had predicted certain things 4, 5, sometimes 7,000 years BC about things that were about to happen in the future.
Wow, so it's
But
really a way
those,
to be.
because of those 3 commandments and those 3 beliefs, it's almost impossible to taint that. Because if you were to think with some power of religion, which I think is one of the biggest problems in the world today, by labeling and separating people from religion, you can actually get people to do some terrible things, some inhuman things. But if you follow those 3 rules of good thoughts, good words, good deeds, it's almost impossible for you to be tainted and do any harm against humanity. So that's why I like it and hold it near and dear to my heart, because of my mother, of course, because I'm a very religious person myself.
Wow, this is really a synchronistic conversation, and we're going to continue this with Jamie, Freddie, and myself after this commercial message.
Good morning, I'm Corinne Caro, and I'm here with Dominique. She is the host of our show, Art and Fashion, and thank you so much for having a show each week.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
I love your shows. It brings in starving artists and people that have such creative ability. Thank you for doing it. What do you do when you look for a host?
I know a lot of creative people. I know people in all walks of art and fashion. So I just look for people who have done things that are different, who have found their own little path and are working on something really creative and really special.
I feel like you're creative in yourself. Tell us a little bit about your clothing store.
I have a vintage clothing store, Paper Doll Vintage Boutique. We specialize in clothes from the 20s through the 70s, 80s. And then we also have mid-century reproductions of like pinup style clothing of like the 40s and 50s. So it's also unique, one-of-a-kind clothing.
I love it. That's your creative. If you'd like to be on Dominique's show, please contact us at the Daily Blue, 631-761-9223.
Welcome back to Journey into Awareness. We're just having this enthralling conversation with my co-host, Jamie Love from San Diego, and Fred McCubbin from Long Beach, California.
We were just talking about the Zoroastrian faith and the Baha'i faith, and I did want to add something to that a lot of people don't know, is that the Zoroastrians were really steeped heavily in magic. They called their priests magi, and the magi were the ones that were sent out to find the Christ child. And not a lot of people know that.
Really?
So I just wanted to put that in.
They call them the wise men, the 3 wise men.
The 3 wise men, but they were actually magi. Is that not correct, Fred?
That's the 3 magi that because they were able to use the power of astronomy and astrology mixed together and put things together in clairvoyance. And so they wrote about the coming of the Christ child, supposedly. It is what I read anyway.
Hundreds of years prior to him showing up.
170 years BC, they had written about it, and so they made the journey. But that's interesting because in many parts of the world, they don't want to acknowledge that they were Persian magi. They just, they call them the 3 wise men from, wherever. Like some people think they were
Right.
Arabian, some people think they
Oriental.
were
Right.
old and so forth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's always fascinating to go back and read the history and connect the dots.
Exactly.
This is really a cool conversation. I'm getting chills as you guys are talking, And for me, that means truth.
I know that there's an amazing story that we really want to hear from Fred, and it has to do, it's a full circle story, and this is what really jazzes me about it. It's about when Fred was a young man in, where were you in Iran or?
Right, in Iran.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that?
Well, what part do you want to know?
I want to know from the beginning to the part where you met the man that saved your life.
Okay. Well, I was, as we said earlier, before on the show, I was born to a pure Persian mother. My father, unfortunately, wasn't around. After the revolution happened, it was a real difficult time for everybody. And my father had to kind of run and hide because it's just, he was not a very good person.
Right.
And some authorities were after him. He was also very abusive towards my mother, which also made my mother and I a lot closer together. I had to, at a young age, grow up very quickly and take the role of the male figure in the family. Then the war happened soon after, and the war, again, very difficult time for many people. It was a very scary situation. The government of Iran at the time was doing a lot of propaganda and putting out all kinds of, media to make the world not like us. And so basically, when parts of the world united against us in attack, we were, as people, we were very confused because I grew up with all kinds of foreigners in our country,
Yes.
living peaceful in harmony. And some of my best friends were Americans, some of them were Italians, and some of them were from England. I mean, it was just so strange that all of a sudden the people of the world had just so much hatred for us because we couldn't see what was going on the outside, what they were seeing on their television and their news sets.
What time of year was that? What was the time frame of that, Fred?
We're around 79, 1980, around that time.
Okay.
And it's funny because everybody talks about democracy and trying to bring democracy to that part of the world, and what they don't know about the history of Iran is that the people already had democracy. There was a great leader at the time called Mr. Mossadegh, and he was the son of a very powerful attorney, and he was a great politician, and not to mention a beautiful human soul that just wanted to bring equality and for all mankind, compassion for all mankind, and he had brought democracy. But that's when the Shah of Iran came back and they threw him in jail.
Right.
There are some rumors that CIA had something to do with it. Of course, I'm not much for conspiracy theories. I don't really go in that angle, in that direction. But anyway, so because of that, when the war happened, and that, I'm sure you guys remember that guy named Khomeini that was the religious figure, and then he was the spearhead for the extremists that started
The Ayatollah. Yeah. The Ayatollah. Yeah.
Right, the Ayatollah of Iran, as everybody called him. And so there were some struggles at the beginning politically.
Right.
There was even a possibility that people were going to overthrow him because they weren't happy with what was going on in their nation. But when the war happened, it actually re-strengthened him because everybody decided, okay, that's it. We need to put our differences aside,
Yep.
and now we need to gather arms and defend our nation against Iraq and these countries that are helping Iraq. I mean, we had people like Russia was happening; they were helping Iraq. Egypt was helping Iraq, and we were very confused as a nation because we were thinking, we've been peaceful with all these people. Why are they suddenly attacking us? Why are they helping Saddam Hussein?
Right.
So that's where I come in. In school, because I didn't have my father around, it was a lot easier for them to come and, quote unquote, I'm making bunny ears, you guys can't see it, quote unquote, take us as volunteers and take us into war. And so I joined a group called the Basiji. The Basiji were 1,001 strong. At the time, they were known as that name. That was the slogan for the volunteer young people that would be in the war. And I was barely 13 at the time. We were talking around 1982 at the time.
Wow.
Yes.
So I was taken to war, and it was a very difficult experience for me because, I witnessed a couple of my very close friends from high school basically die right next to me. I saw a lot of death. I saw a lot of hatred. I saw a lot of aggression, and things that,
Things that a 13-year-old boy should not see.
should not
Yes,
see. Yes, but at the
it's true.
same time, I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I mean, I regret that it exists. I regret war ever exists because it's one of the most useless and pointless things in life.
Absolutely. Yes.
As spiritual, souls that are having their human experience here on Earth, we shouldn't have to be cut short like that on our journey because of war. But do I sit here like some of these veterans and say, "Oh my God, I was destroyed and ruined forever" and all that? No, it actually built me. It made me stronger. And the discussion, the conversation I had with Richard not too long ago was that because of the death, because of the tyranny, because of the war that I saw, it brought me closer to the truth, and the truth being light, being knowledge.
Yes.
Truth is what everything in our life is all about. Truth is what this is all about. We are truth seekers. And seeing all that depth brought me to see the light and gave me the confirmation that I needed about some of the spiritual things that I knew as a young kid because of my grandfather, who was my guru, he was my spiritual guide. The things that he taught me, that confirmed it all. And so I don't regret it. It really built me into what I am today.
Well, we'll continue with Fred's story after this commercial break.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Tim Stead. I'm from Star Communications. We're a marketing support company. And if you need help with your next marketing project, please call 273-1900 or you can go to our website, starcommunications.us.
Welcome back to Journey into Awareness with Jamie Love, Dr. Richard Cherney, and our guest, Freddie McCubbin. He's going to continue with this amazing story as a child in Iraq and Iran during the war. Here he is,
Yes,
Freddie McCubbin.
Where do you guys want me to take it off from?
Well,
You left
I'm
off.
kidding, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. It's not my first rodeo. Hello, guys.
sorry.
All right, so where we left off before the commercial was the war and how I got taken into war, and I really don't regret it because it made me who I am today. But obviously there were some great losses and everything. But then there was an amazing journey after that, how I left the country and I went to Dubai, which is in United Arab Emirates. I reunited with some of my family, got adopted. That's how I got the name McCubbin, because obviously there's no Scott Irish in me. But it was for my own protection so that they wouldn't deport me back to the country because I couldn't get a visa. My natural mother and my sister were able to get visas right away through Amsterdam. They came to the States, but I wasn't able to follow. So I had to travel halfway around the world. I went to Switzerland for a while. Then I went for a year and a half to West Africa, of all places. I was in Ivory Coast, and that's where I, learned all the different languages. I learned French, I learned English, and then I finally got a student visa and came here to the States. 22 years passed, and I never told my story to anyone. For one, I was kind of scared to talk about it.
Sure.
But secondly, it's such an incredible story that most people that I would tell the story to wouldn't even believe it. They wouldn't believe that a 12-year-old, 13-year-old was running around with a 57 anti-tank gun or going up into the mountains fighting the Kurds and taking villages back from them and so forth. But there's a lot of footage, there's images, there's pictures, there's documents that actually prove this. And so what was the most amazing part of this story is that now 22, 23 years have passed. And there was a soldier when I was there, and especially the first few weeks of training, where I was really upset. I was distraught. I cried a lot because I thought about my mother. I thought I'm never going to see her. And my mother and I are very close.
Absolutely.
Since my dad was never around, Mm-hmm. And so I was mostly afraid for her that I would never see my mother again. And this soldier would come to me all the time, and I'll never forget it. He always called me by my last name, never called me by my rank. He would always call me by my last name. And at that time, they knew me by my grandfather's name, which is Ali Abadi, because that's what I wanted to be called by. So he would call it short, and he'd call me Ali. And he would say, "Mr. Ali, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying, my brother? Come here, give me a hug. What's wrong with you? Everything's going to be fine. Listen, this is my second tour. I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do it. You're going to be just fine. You're going to see your mother. Everything's going to be fine."
Yes.
And every time he spoke to me, I felt this amazing energy, like this warmth in my gut, like everything was really going to be fine.
Yep.
Because he told me it was going to be fine. So in that sense, he spiritually saved my life.
Wow. That's amazing.
Most of the young guys were taught this thing, which is a religious thing in Islam, and that is called the Shahadin. when you become a shaheed, you are basically a martyr. So they were teaching us martyrdom. And I don't want to say brainwashing us with this, but believe me, towards the end, I even started believing in dying for a better cause. And it wasn't necessarily the religious cause. In my head, in my mind, I was prepared to die for my mother, for my family, so that the Iraqis would not come and rape and pillage our country's, thousands of years of history and culture and destroy us. So even I was starting to think this comfortable feeling like it's okay if I die, especially if it's for a good cause. I'm prepared for that. I had prepared myself mentally and spiritually for that. And this soldier kind of pulled me out of that. He brought me back to where I didn't want to die because I knew everything was going to be fine. Then physically one time, we were ambushed by the Kurds, and it was a really bad firefight. We had firefight coming from each direction. I got pretty much trapped under a truck because it was basically a convoy truck, and it was carrying us, and then we got attacked. And I was hiding underneath the truck, and I was too scared, and I was too frozen to move because there were bullets coming at us from every direction, and I knew at any second we were going to get mortar attack on us. And this particular soldier I'm talking about jumps in, grabs me, carries me out of that situation. So he saved my life.
Wow.
So let's fast forward to now we're in the United States. 22, 23 years have passed. And I was doing this motivational speech in front of, I remember it was a real estate group. And so I was doing technology and motivational talk for these people. And this Italian lady comes to me and she says, you've got to be either Italian or Persian. And I said, well, I know why you get Italian, because you sound like you speak Italian, and I know Italian and Italian people. And so you sound like you're Italian, but how do you know Persian? And she said, well, because I married a Persian. And you guys, all you talk about is your mama's boys. And the whole time we were talking, I was talking about my mother. So that's how she put the two together. And she said, oh, you got to meet my husband. He's this wonderful guy. You guys would love each other. So we met, and instantly I felt this bond with this person. When I gave him a hug, it was like I'd known him for thousands of years. Like he's my kindred brother, but I just don't know why I feel this way. Some time went by, and one night we were talking, and the discussion of war came up. And he says, oh, Freddie, I didn't know you were in the war when you were, in Iran when you were 13 years old. I said, yeah, it's nothing I really want to talk about. It's not something I bring up all the time. And so we started talking, and I started telling him the story about the 55 airborne troops, and how one of them saved my life. And he says, well, I was in the 55. What was the guy's name? And I start telling him his name, and all of a sudden he starts having tears in his eyes. And he runs into the room, and he comes back with a picture, and he says, Freddie, do you remember this guy in this picture? And I'm looking at this young man in this uniform, and now in front of my friends, I start bursting into tears. And my friends are like, okay, no more wine for these two. What the heck is going on? Boy, why are these guys crying? And I showed the guys the picture, and I said, guys, this is him. This is the soldier that saved my life all those years ago. And look at the coincidence and what a small world this is. We have found each other thousands of miles away in this great nation in the world. We've all made our, lives, we've made our dreams come true. Here he has his wife, he's got his children, I'm married, I've got my stuff going, and we're all grown-ups. And the thing is, we had changed so much that we both didn't recognize each other right away. And of course, because we'd both changed our names too, we didn't recognize that that's who we were. So now we see each other at least once a week, and I don't let any time go by without talking to him.
That's amazing. But obviously you did feel the connection when you met him the first time. So you had that soul connection.
Yes.
Yeah, that hug, because see, in Persian culture, men, when they meet, they hug. Sometimes they even kiss each other on the cheek. It's customary.
Yes.
It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we hugged each other, it's like all of a sudden I wanted to hang on to him and not let go, because instantly I felt this energy, like I knew this guy for thousands of years.
Wow.
And I just couldn't explain it, but I knew there was something there. And then when I found out why, I wasn't too surprised anymore. I wasn't shocked about it.
Freddie,
That's a riveting story.
that's an amazing story. And as you were telling it, I was starting to tear up myself because it touched me in my heart. And that's what our show, Jamie and my show, is about, Journey into Awareness. We are going to be talking to people about their inspiring stories and what makes them who they are. And
Today.
Freddie McCubbin, you inspire us. So
I love you guys. Thank you.
thank you for
Thank you
being
saying
here.
that.
Thank you for being here, Fred.
And I'd like to thank both of you, especially my muse and my partner over here, Jamie Lou Adams from San Diego, and my brother, who is also a Mason, my brother, Freddie McCubbin, for being here. Look forward to more episodes on Journey into Awareness with more inspiring stories about how you can empower yourselves and everybody else in your life with love. See you next time.
See you next time, guys.
Love you guys. Talk to you later.
Love you, Fred.
Love you guys.